Welcome to the Dave Palma Show, the podcast that revives, restores, and awakens your innermost capabilities.
You have the training and the talent to succeed, but do you have the guts to fail?
I love what I do. When you love what you do, you want to be the best at it.
Today is about the power of you. You will change the world.
Find your path to success through the journey of those who have succeeded. And now, your host, Dave Palma.
Hi, welcome back to the Dave Palma Show. And with me in this episode, I have the author of the new book, 365 Ways to Have a Good Day, a day-by-day guide to enjoying a more successful, fulfilling life. Ian Saunders, welcome to the Dave Palma Show.
Hey Dave, good to be with you today. Thank you.
Good to be with you as well, and a good job. I can get home early because you're in the UK, so I don't have to wait late for my US guests or wake up early. So it's nice to have a UK homegrown to talk about, many authors that come in here, as well as other, people non-authors as well. I'm quite intrigued with the book. Sounds like it kind of gets you going each day, and it's kind of like habit forming. It sounds, like each day do maybe, I don't know, but you can perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, thanks, Dave. It's the planet. We've all been through this weird time, haven't we, for the last couple of years?
Yeah.
And there's a lovely line by a poet I know called David White. He's a poet based in the US.
Right.
And he said it's as if the pandemic has given us a new set of eyes and ears. And I love that sense that we've all got a bit more clarity about what's really important in our life. It could be, appreciating our friends and family more. It could just be those little moments of every day that are really important to us. We're all different. We all need different things to have a good day. And what I'm aiming to do with the new book, 365 Ways to Have a Good Day, is just to offer people a kind of curated set of stories, ideas and tips that people can think about in order to how they can have a good day. And, I'll be honest, you're not going to read a book necessarily and go, all 365 are for you. But I think it will give you a nudge. It will get you thinking about what it is you need to have a good day and how you can, rethink your life, redesign your life to put the ingredients in that you need.
Yeah. Well, we're going to have a look at a bit more of a deeper dive into the book later. But let's find out more about you and your own story, and then other things you've done to lead up to this book. I know you've got other books as well. So, what's your humble beginnings, and how did you sort of get involved with all this?
That's a good question. We have to press the rewind button and go back a few decades because
get some violins out and stuff. No.
It's funny because I'm speaking to you this afternoon from my home in Leigh-on-Sea, just by the Thames Estuary here in Essex, 40 miles to the east of London. Yeah. And although I've lived in London, lived in other parts of the UK, this was also my hometown, and I came back to live here as an adult about 15 years ago. And when I was growing up as a kid, we grew up in a household originally that we didn't have a TV set. And in the early 1970s, that was like really weird. None of my friends kind of believed me we didn't have a TV. And we finally got our TV set when I was about 9 years old. But
was it black and white or colour?
It was colour. I'm not
that old. We had a black and white one, so at least we had a TV anyway.
You had a TV. But no, we got me and my sister, we got our TV. We could watch Doctor Who. But what that did was it really ignited in me. I was suddenly really passionate about television and radio, and I thought, wouldn't it be amazing to have a career in radio and television? And I set my heart on that, and had a few kind of lucky breaks, and I found myself in the 1990s, in my early 20s, working in television and radio in London. Living my kind of childhood dream, and it was a wonderful 10 years. I was working in a media company, had a lot of success at an early age. So it was only a small business, but I kind of climbed through the ranks, became managing director of a radio studio business, and it was like, this is awesome. But there's another side to that, and you know what it's like, Dave. You interview so many people on this podcast that there's often a point of change in our story. There's a point of transformation, and the point of transformation in my own story was when I guess I'd lost sight of what I needed to have a good day. I'd lost sight of those things that were really sacred to me. I was chasing a version of success that was very seductive, that was kind of like earn more money, wear a smart jacket, go out to cool restaurants, and it wasn't really me. And I found that the more success I had, the more it took me away from who I really was. You know, I'm quite a creative soul. You know, I love to, I love to get out my camera. I love to write. And I found myself in a job where I was kind of just spreadsheets and business plans, basically. And I found myself at the end of the 1990s, kind of around the age of 30. I'd lost my way. I had found myself going from a job that was full of joy to a job where I was just feeling really down and really flat the whole time. And, you know, no surprise, my doctor in London, you know, she said, you're depressed. You're suffering from depression. And I hadn't been paying attention to my mental health. I don't think I'd been paying attention to my health very well at all. Yeah. And when she prescribed me some antidepressants, I mean, I've nothing against antidepressants. I know they work for a lot of people. That was my point of change, Dave. That was when I felt, you know what? I'm not gonna take the medication. I'm gonna change my life.
What's going on? Yeah.
And I'm gonna quit my job. And so I quit my job to start my own thing. And it's been a long journey, but a journey towards back towards who I really am, and uncovering the real me, building a life around me as an independent, as someone who works for himself, kind of 1-2 person business, me and my wife run. It's been a journey back towards kind of who I really am and what I stand for. And I guess, you know, the new book is at the very heart of that, because in a way, this is the book. I know it's a podcast, you can't see it, but I'm just holding it now. You know, this is the book that I needed to read when I was a young man. You know, I needed someone to show me the way and say, are you being intentional about creating the life you really need? And I didn't have that. And I don't think a lot of us have that. And so I lost my way and found myself in a position where I was really struggling. Not just in my job, I think I was struggling with some of my life, you know. And so having that point of change, which then took me on a different path, on a new path, and if it's not too cheesy, a path towards Ian, right? And that was taking me where I am today in 2022.
Yeah. So it's experiential as well as sort of based on other things that you've researched as well, this book.
Yeah. It comes from a personal place of my own experiences. But it would be boring if I was just going to write a book about my own experiences. So, you know, I've interviewed experts and other
it's not
people.
An autobiography or anything like that.
No,
I mean, I wrote a book, but it's kind of like a memoir kind of self-help book, but
there's a lot of me in it. You know, there's a lot of me in it. You know, I know you interview a lot of authors on this show, and there's that cliche, isn't there, which is, you know, you write about what you know. Well, you know, I'm the world-class expert on knowing me. You know, you're the world-class expert on knowing you, and that's where the book came from, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I mean, working for the BBC, I mean, that's an awesome. I mean, I've worked as a firefighter, and everyone says, "Yeah, it's really great," which it is. It was my dream job, you know, in London as well, you know. So
amazing.
But BBC also, you know, I mean, I did actually, you know some people from the BBC when I was doing my sports athletics. I did athletics actually, so I, you know, wasn't a superstar, but brushing shoulders. So
wow, well done.
But I did the Olympic trials, Commonwealth Games, but you know, and stuff like that. So I made local news, you know, not massive BBC. But what I'm saying is that you know, I know roughly how it works. So that's an awesome place to be as well, isn't it? Really.
Yeah. So I wasn't working at the BBC in the period I just described, but I got involved working in my BBC local radio station when I was a teenager, because as I said, I was passionate about broadcasting. And then as a kind of consultant / storyteller kind of / author, I have worked. I've worked with the BBC as a client. You know, where I've run workshops for them here in the UK. So BBC's been part of my journey. Never had a proper job there, but I've had.
I'm with you now. Yeah, they were one of your. I'm with you now. You're contracted rather than.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Let's dive into the book then a bit. I know you've got a few other books out as well. We can talk about those, or people can dive into your website. We can talk about that as well later. But the one I'm interested in at the moment in this episode is the book you just released just now in the UK. 365 Ways to Have a Good Day. So let's give us a quick overview and of the episode of the chapters and a synopsis. Overall synopsis.
Well, what might be relevant is kind of where the book started. I think a lot of us had our lives turned upside down in the spring of 2020 when the pandemic hit. Yeah. And I found that as someone that works myself, I lost quite a lot of work in the spring lockdown of 2020. I suddenly had a lot of time on my hands. And I found that, I've always been a great note taker, Dave. I love writing lists, and I have these little notebooks. I've always got a notebook on the go. And I had a box of them up in the attic, and I knew they were there, but I'd never had a chance to kind of go through them. And suddenly in March 2020, I was gifted quite a lot of time to reflect on my life. And I kind of went through these old notepads, and I found that they were notepads from the last kind of 15 years. And I found that at a time when we couldn't travel, at a time when, I couldn't do all the things that normally energize me, take the train up to London, might be working in another city in Europe, taking a flight or a train somewhere.
That was your lifestyle at that time, just before.
Well, yeah, I mean, it wasn't like that every week, but there was quite a lot of those short trips that really always energized me. At a time when we couldn't do that, I found all these old notepads full of all these little notes, these little observations that I'd often written when I was, going to speak at a conference somewhere, or going on the train to Glasgow or Cardiff to do something in the UK. And I found that in these 15 notebooks, I thought, you know what, I've kind of got almost these kind of observations and notes on how to live, basically. And I thought, I'm going to start writing them up, because they were all in little notebooks. 15 notebooks. Probably more, going back 15 years. 27, actually, I think it was. 27 notepads going back 15 years. And I went back, and I just started every day spending an hour typing up all the good stuff. And I thought, you know what? I've got the raw materials for a book. Yes. And that was really where it started. And I mean, the essence of the book, as the name suggests, is there are 365 stories, ideas, observations, and tips in there, and a whole load of different things. Some of my own experiences about things that I need to have a good day, friends, experts talking about different things that they need. And it's everything really from, thinking about how we design our working day, if we have control over that. Obviously, some of us do, some of us don't. If you're privileged enough, someone like me that has a lot of flexibility, thinking about when we do the work that really matters, because a lot of us are really energized and really up in the morning. We might not be so much in the afternoon, thinking about those kind of things. Also thinking about those little habits that we start the day. I'm lucky, I live by the coast here, I have a small dog. Every morning I get out and take that dog for a walk, and that's really good for my mental health. Yeah. It means that at a time when so many of us are working at home, I've kind of had a walk to work, because I've gone out the front door and taken the dog out. Yeah. And then I've got some experiences. I mean, there's a lovely story from a friend of mine. He doesn't live in London now, but he used to, and he was living in North London. He got a new job in the east of London. He didn't fancy taking the tube to work, and he figured that he could take the Thames riverboat along the Thames. He could take the boat to work. Yeah. And it was a bit, it perhaps was a bit counterintuitive, because it was taking the slow route to work. Yeah. His name's Nick, and Nick realized that he had to get up earlier, but taking the slow route to work meant he arrived at work in a much better mood, in a much better mindset. Yeah, yeah. And that's the little story I tell in the book. And it's all about, we've all got the opportunity, I think, to experiment with the ingredients. When I say ingredients, I mean the habits and behaviors that we all need in order to have a better day. And I think whether it's, thinking about those small tweaks we can make. If we are, I know a lot of us at the moment aren't commuting to an office, we're all working at home, but say if we're walking to work, walk a different way, how does that change things?
I think Boris has actually changed all that now, hasn't he, really? We've gone back to... Well, in England anyway.
Yeah. So I think a theme of the book is it's about being much more intentional about knowing what we need to have a good day. It's about experimenting, prototyping, and doing things our way and being more aware of what we need to have a good day. In those notebooks I was telling you about, for the last 9 years, I've been writing a little list, and I call it Good Times. And I start it on a Monday morning, I end it on a Sunday night, and I just write in there all the good moments that I had in the week. Taking the dog for a walk in the sunshine, having my morning coffee, chatting to Dave on his podcast. All those little moments go in that list. Yeah. And what that list does is it means that I'm tuned in to the experiences that feed me and fuel me. I don't write down the negative stuff. I don't write down I was feeling poorly, had a crap day. I'm writing down all the good stuff. And I think it means that I'm optimized for always scanning for positivity. And that little habit, the Good Times habit, I'll be doing it this evening. After this, I'll be writing down the good stuff that happened today. Means that I'm much more aware of what I need to have a good day. And anyone that's listening to this can try it. You don't need a subscription to an app. All you need is a pen and paper. It's not going to cost you any money. Just start writing your own good times list of what you need to have a good day. Because the key to having a good day is twofold. It's one, about being aware. It's about awareness, being aware of what you need to have a good day. As I said earlier, we're all different. And secondly, it's about when we know what we need, it's being intentional about that to design our day around that, to make sure that if we really love a little 10-minute walk in the day, make sure every day we're getting a 10-minute walk. If it's really important that we laugh, that we're watching a little podcast, watching a little YouTube clip or whatever, that we have moments of laughter, that, if we can afford it, we go out to the local cafe and have a coffee. All these little things all add up. Those little small things all add up to how we live our days is how we live our life. And I think, as I said in my earlier story, I didn't always live my life like that. And now as a man and a father in my early 50s, I think it's become really important to me. So awareness and intention are two things that are really, really important to me. And I think anyone listening to this can read the book and take those two things on hand to redesign their lives, to think about what they need to have a good day.
Yeah. So is it kind of like a gratitude thing? Where you
good point. It is exactly that. I mean, look, I call it my good times list. It's not that, it's not that unique to me. I mean, that is. But I mean, if you search online, gratitude journal, writing down 3 things every day, you're right. It's exactly the same principle. Yes, and I think, I'm not a scientist. There's a lovely woman who I feature in the book, Dr. Hazel Harrison. She tells me some of the science behind this stuff. But, the science of scanning for positivity, for always, looking for the good moments, kind of rewires our brain to notice those things and be more grateful for them.
I think the neurons or something like that, the connections that it's making and stuff like that. And then there's a kind of 2 parts of the brain, the old brain that's all fear and stress, and then there's the creative side, which you're creative as well, and it kind of sucks the life out of the creative positive side if you're going to not have that. So I mean, without going into neuroscience, because that neuroplasticity and science is all a new area now they're looking at in terms of this self-development world. That's basically, I think, where she's coming from, probably, isn't it?
I think so.
And we're not scientists. I'm not a scientist either. So obviously, getting into coaching, and you obviously do some storytelling coaching as well. We need to know a little bit about it, and obviously I was a sports person, so
yes, you understand
most sports coaches, even the famous football managers, need to know some kind of psychology and even physiology, what's going on, to know when to take the players off, what's going on in their mind, to get them to tick and play well, don't they, really? So, and that's what you do as a storytelling coach, and tell us about that.
Yeah, well, I work with organizations, getting them thinking about how they can tell stories. I think stories, I mean, we do it naturally, don't we? You told me about, your athletic life. I talked about how I got started. When two people meet for the first time, we naturally tell stories, and I get hired by organizations to help business leaders and people inside organizations, better communicate through the power of story.
Yeah.
Storytelling is a real buzzword at the moment, but I always aim to keep it really simple. It's what human beings have done for thousands and thousands of years. It's how information and knowledge gets passed down from generation to generation. I think sometimes when we think about storytelling at work and in organizations, people overcomplicate it sometimes. And I'm a great advocate of keep it simple. Tell the story like, you were chatting to Ian in a bar or a coffee shop, or So that's a really important part of my work, storytelling. And I mean, I guess you introduced me as an author. I mean, that's what I do as an author. I tell stories in this book. 365 little tiny short stories. And actually, writing that was a lovely constraint, because my editor Ian, a lovely bloke, and my publisher, thank you Ian for publishing the book. He came up with the idea around the 365 things, and each chapter is like 2 paragraphs, because there's 365 of them, and it was a nice constraint for me creatively, because sometimes you write a story and you can write and write and write, and this is like, no, this has got to be super short, So that was a nice challenge and nice learning for me as well.
Yeah. No, I mean, as you say, you've mentioned you've got some great clients, big clients as well. Yeah. So I mean, that's something you really are seasoned at doing. And you've also had a few books out before this one as well, haven't you? So you are an author.
Yeah, this is my
a seasoned author as well. You don't want to say that down.
This is my 5th book, but I hadn't had a book out for about 10 years. But my first one was called Leap: Ditch Your Job, Start Your Own Business, and Set Yourself Free. And that was quite. I mean, it's a how-to guide, self-help guide, but it's kind of anchored in my own story, and so it's quite autobiographical. But it was about, I quit my job to do my own thing, and a lot of people now work for themselves, don't they? You go into your local Starbucks full of people with laptops working for themselves. But back in,
I do that sometimes.
Yeah, I must admit. Me too. But back in 2000, we didn't have Wi-Fi, and that was quite rare.
Yeah,
and I took the leap to work for myself, and I found that I had a lot of people contact me, finding my website, contact me on email. I'd love some advice on working for yourself, and I thought, I can't go out, I can't meet up with all these people for coffee. So I wrote a book, and I wrote a book about how to work for yourself. Yeah.
Yes.
So that was my first one. Then I wrote another one called Juggle: Rethink Work, Reclaim Your Life, and that was the idea that we might do more than one thing. That Dave might be a podcast host, but is also a coach, also does other things at the same time. The idea that we're more than a single job title, that we can be kind of plural in my language.
Yeah.
And then the third book I wrote was called Zoom: The Faster Way to Make Your Business Idea Happen. And my 4th book was called Mashup, which is a bit like Juggle, about this, exploring further this idea that we can be our multi-dimensional selves. Some people love just doing one thing. I don't know, obviously, you must have been very, to be a firefighter, obviously that's a very difficult job. You must have been trained, had a lot of training, highly competitive.
It was my professional job, but I did athletics. It was an overlap, because athletics was what I did from school days when I kept it up.
So there you are. The point I was going to make is that we're all multidimensional, and you were a firefighter, but also you were doing your athletics. And I think sometimes in the world of work, we are encouraged to just kind of do one thing and not bring our real selves to work. And I've always been an advocate that we can have much better quality lives and better relationships at work if we can. I know it's a kind of cliche, but we can bring our full selves to work. Yeah, and that was the point around writing that book, Mashup, about we can be more than one thing. We can be multi-dimensional.
Yeah, absolutely. But that book, Zoom, I mean, obviously you didn't write that when Zoom was out, did you?
No, so Zoom, good question. So Zoom, that was a while ago. And it was just the idea that it was called Zoom: The Faster Way to Make Your Idea Happen. And it was just, we were in that world, what was it, around 2010, when, you could launch a business online, you could build your own website, you could test your proposition online if you had a digital business. And it was really kind of like just unpacking that for readers of how we can launch and test a business idea really rapidly. And, you know, when I worked in the 1990s, it was all about business planning and forecasts and spreadsheets. And in the book Zoom, which I wrote with a friend of mine, David Slowly, the idea of that was that, you know, in a world that's changing as fast as the world we're in now, like, I mean, I know if you're a big business, you know, you can, and you've got big overhead and staff, you need a business plan. But, you know, if you're a 1 or 2 person business or just starting your own thing, I don't know what, I think there's a lot of obsession around, I've got to do my business plan. I'm doing my forecast for what I'm going to earn in January 2023. It's like, who knows what's around the corner? You know, business planning is business guessing for a certain type of business. So that was what I was saying that was my message in Zoom to, you know, forget traditional business planning and just give it a go.
Yeah. Excellent. So, Ian, what you up to these days? And I know I was actually living in the Philippines for about, you know, post-retirement age, doing my podcast from there, and I moved back to the UK almost a year ago. So I spent half the pandemic in paradise and half the pandemic with the Delta variant and the Omicron variant. So, you know, I know what restrictions we've had, but what are you up to now, or what's coming up for you now?
Well, the US and Canada launch of the book is you know, coming up right now, so that's really exciting. You know, I'm really busy doing my storytelling workshops for organizations, and most of that happens online. But I'm really excited. You know, I'm going to Dublin next week. It's my first doing an in-person workshop for a couple of years. So you know, it's only Dublin, only an hour away. But I think
a lot of events now, it's going to be almost like, you know, teenage girls coming out of Catholic schools, you know, convents, saying, "Wow, the real world." You know, a lot of speakers, it's events and music, you know, events. So it's like you.
So yeah, it's going to be nice to, you know, I often run workshops with quite small teams, like 7 or 8 people.
Oh, right.
So it'll be really nice to be in Dublin, just, you know, with some people around me. You know, we're so used to doing things online, and that's great. You know, I work with people all over the world, and you know, today I've been talking to someone in Moscow, and last week it was Mexico and Brazil. So, you know, I love all that, and that wouldn't be business that I'd normally do in person anyway. That's all online. But you know what it's like. There's something rather nice about, you know, taking a journey somewhere and sitting with a group of people where you can see each other. And, you know, I'm a great advocate of us sharing our stories, and you know, we've done that very well today, you and I, online. But I think sometimes where you can take the time to sit with a group of people and hear their stories and do it in person, I think you get more goosebumps than when you do it online.
Yeah, that's true. I think the word hybrid is going to be very common there. That's the new normal. It wouldn't quite be just totally online. Although there's some businesses that have totally more or less been online, you know, some clothing outlets and stuff like that. Probably thought, you know, actually we're going to save a lot of money and make a hell of a lot more and stuff like that. But anyway, let's not go down that route. We're here to talk about your book. So where can people find your book? And I mean, we're in the UK, so obviously my UK listeners, I've got a very large listener base in North America, so they will obviously be interested.
The book is out. The book is out now. So I think by the time this goes out, you know, you'll certainly be able to order it if you wherever you live in the world. You live near a major city, you'll be able to order it in your local bookstore. It's also available Kindle, so you can order it from all the usual places online or your regular bookstore. Just search on 365 Ways to Have a Good Day. I'm Ian Sanders, so if you put that in your search engine, you'll find it. And yeah, it's available. It's a nice hard copy. It's got a lovely bright orange cover. The hardback edition, and also available in Kindle. You know, and I'm at that stage, Dave, where it was out in the UK and Europe at the end of 2021, and I'm at that lovely stage where you know, I'm hearing from readers, people that have picked the book up randomly and just, you know, send me an email, or maybe they find me on Instagram and send me a message on Instagram, just saying, you know, they found the book. I got one a few weeks ago. A guy had found the book lives in Sheffield in the north of England, and had found the book in his local bookstore when he was Christmas shopping, and thought he'd treat himself to a present. young musician who really liked it. And I heard from someone last week who was in Rotterdam in the Netherlands, and said it had really given him a nudge for kind of, how could he have a really good year in 2022? And that's my hope, that anyone listening to this that picks up the book, who's curious enough to, can really think about, what do I need to have a better life in 2022? What can I do about it? And all those things I've talked about today about being more intentional. So I'm really excited now. It's out in the wild.
Excellent. Well, Ian, I'm delighted to be speaking to a homegrown UK author and everything else. A guest coming on the show, and really great for you to come on the show and speak about your book to my audience today. Thanks very much.
Oh, thanks so much, Dave. And if people want to find me, I'm at Ian Sanders on Twitter and Instagram, and it's iansanders.com is the website.
Oh, sorry, I forgot to mention that. I forgot to mention where can we find it. So iansanders.com and it's IANSANDERS, Ian Sanders, .com. Right, sorry about that. And I'll make sure that when you go on my website and go on the actual episode page, you'll see his website on his bio as well, Ian's bio. So and his social media stuff. So great, Ian. Once again, thanks very much for coming on the show today.
Thank you, Dave. Really enjoyed chatting.
That's all for this episode. Thanks for listening, and remember, if you want to support what we do, then share, subscribe, and leave a review over on Apple Podcasts, or head over to my website, davepalmer.com, and click on Rate Show. Well, that's all for now, but I'll see you in the next episode of The Dave Palmer Show.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.